Welcome, everybody. This is the second gathering of making healing sentences simpler, finding the love in systems. That didn't trip out off the tongue very easily. It's really nice to have you all here. I'm Leslie Nips. I'm your teacher and guide and facilitator for today. It's just lovely to have you. I'm very excited about this gathering. We had a really nice time yesterday, and it will be the same but different, of course, because we have a different stew of people here. We'll see what shows up. A little bit of orientation. We're all Zoom pros now, but just a reminder, bottom left-hand corner is the mute button. We keep ourselves muted by and large in order to maintain background noise. And then there's also the hide video, which most of you know. It's nice to see each other's faces, but if there's a reason why you need to hide yourself for a bit, we understand. There's that. There's the chat function at the bottom, which I invite you to play with right now by putting in your name and where in the world you're zooming in from. We are systemic people, and it tends to make a system feel good when we kind of know where we're all coming from. And it's often kind of fun and delightful. So not only put your own in, but read the others, because I'm not going to read them all out loud. But notice where we're all gathered. Ooh, today is the Australians and the New Zealanders and the Hong Kongers. This is a better time for them than yesterday's was. We have Canadian. Of course, we have some Americans from around the country. So it is delightful to have you all here. Again, just your name and where you're zooming in from, and then read what shows up there. Upper right-hand corner, that's where you have control over how the screen looks. If you like the speaker view, particularly for the part where I'm going to lecture, or if you prefer the gallery view, the Hollywood Squares view, that's mostly for the constellation pieces of work. That can be nice. And that's really all we need to say about Zoom these days, I think. A little outline of the workshop. There's going to be a chunk of lecture, mostly front-ended. I have a lot to say about healing sentences. And so I hope you enjoy that lecture and some different angles I bring to what will probably be very familiar material for a lot of you, but kind of a different way in. Which is often what we need to kind of help ourselves take a different movement forward in our practice. Some demonstrations, and then the last third is going to be mostly you guys doing some pair work with each other in small groups, okay? Room for questions. This is not a huge group, and so feel free to just, unless the moment is clearly odd, to lean forward and ask a question, unless I'm doing a constellation, in which way, just hold off until I'm done doing the constellation, okay? We have people from all over the place. This is great. Thank you. And a very, 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 very short break in the middle, just a bio break, in order to really, I find like 3 hours is never enough. So short break in the middle. If you need to take a break at a different time, then obviously take care of yourself. Do what you got to do. If you want to let me know why you're leaving in the chat, I'm off to the bathroom or whatever, that's always nice, because in my preaching days, some of you know that I had a previous vocation as a parish minister. If someone walked out in the middle of your sermon, you always wondered what that was about. Did I just make someone angry, or they just have to go off to the restroom? So, but please take care of your needs. A little bit of group agreement. I find for this sort of thing, even though this is more of a workshop, a teaching event, we're going to be doing some work together, a little bit of vulnerability, a little bit of hopefully you getting something rich from it personally, as well as some learning. And having a group agreement tends to set the container and help everybody feel good about doing that at the level that feels right for them. So just a few things, and then I'll ask you for your assent. If you want to represent, there's not going to be many opportunities for that, but there will be. If you want to represent, then I'm going to ask you to have privacy. Obviously, we need to see you. A small place in which to stand if you're able to stand. And have yourself decently front lit so that we can see you pretty well. Just a little reminder, tech can be glitchy, right? We all know this, particularly when we get to the point around the breakouts. So I just ask for your patience around tech glitches. They happen. And also, if you have something happening locally on your end, I can't troubleshoot for you. Please understand, I'm managing the whole group. If you're having a bad internet today, someone was just writing, I had their video off because the internet was a little unstable, and so sometimes turning the video off helps with that. Again, those are things you'll have to troubleshoot on your end, and it happens sometimes. Many of you, so there's a broad array of exposure to constellations here, probably all the way from people who are don't have much exposure, but they've heard about this healing sentences thing and they think it might be helpful for their coaching or whatever they do, yeah, to people who are extremely experienced facilitators in constellations work. For those of you who have been exposed to other constellation facilitators, the good news is that there is a broad array of constellation practice that we all share. Yeah? So we're up to the same thing, which is great. And we do it lots of different ways. Differently enough that sometimes if you're really used to a certain way of doing it, a different way of doing it may be a little like, huh, what, really? So if that happens to you today, invite you into curiosity about that, enjoyment of that. And if in any way it's not your cup of tea, I honor that. And just let me captain the ship today, okay, for the benefit of the group. Another thing that's really important, in addition to good learning, I hope that you have a meaningful personal experience. But for these kinds of workshops, it's often important to sort of just tag. You may get work today that's partial or incomplete, right? We're not doing full personal constellations, yeah? So just sort of go, okay, that's okay. It may be something gets open but not completely completed. It may start you towards something, and take care of yourself in a way that makes that okay for you. Yeah, it's kind of not the workshop where you want to do a head dive into your deepest pain, right? For that, you want to make sure it's going to be tended to. So take care of yourself in that way. And partial work can be really useful. Yeah, it opens a door to something. And also to support you having a rich personal experience. There's something about Zoom, I understand. It's different than coming in. If you were all in a room together, you'd probably have a plan. Everyone would have a plan to arrive on time and leave on time, with rare exceptions, without a whole lot of coming and going. With Zoom, people can multitask or kind of come and go. To the degree that you can stay for the whole 3 hours, not only does that really serve the group and its process and me leading, it serves you as well. I do understand you may have a commitment of some sort that makes that not possible, but if you are able to, I do ask it. I've just been having lots of workshops lately with a bunch of coming and going, and it can be a little tricky, a little stumbly. So if you can stick through it, that's really awesome. Thank you. And I do understand if you're not able to. The usual agreement around confidentiality, you may know someone here, there may be colleagues, either in what you witness in the demo work or when you go into breakouts. If you get personal information about other people, please hold that confidentially. Don't share that with others. The way I like to think about this is, even though this is the holy grid, it's a type of holy sacred circle. Yeah, this is circle work. And when we leave circle work, we want to hold it with a certain reverence. Yeah, and that's holding it with a certain lovely respect and reverence afterwards. So you may end up talking about it with someone, but leave out the details about other people. Again, the recording, we're going to be recording. You can already see in the upper left-hand corner, we're going to be recording. We're not going to record the breakout rooms, so don't worry about that. But everything else is going to be recorded and shared with everyone else in the class. And although I ask you to not share it with people who haven't paid for the workshop, we can't control that once the link is out there, yeah? So just understand that if you volunteer to demonstrate, to be part of a demo, or to share something or ask something, just remember you're being recorded, and if that's not something you want recorded, then don't volunteer for that bit, right? Or bring a different issue that you would feel comfortable on a recording. So that's the agreement. If you're cool with all that, could you raise your hand so I can see your hands? And we have a couple of people on record, Roma and Amy. You can do the little, great, excellent. There's also the little Zoom hand if you want to use the Zoom hand. That's fine as well. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. I think I saw everyone's hand. Okay, so I am going to do a somewhat lengthy lecture that I hope is useful for you. However, before we do that, I want to, sort of grease the wheels. I want to do a little doing. So what I'm going to invite you to do right now, I hope you have paper and pen. This is a workshop, so you probably have a paper and pen for taking notes anyway. I want you to start brainstorming some material for the work we're going to be doing later, so I don't ask it later and you're deer in the headlights. You have a little time to think about it, okay? So the material I want you to think about is 3 to 5 situations in your life where it doesn't have to be your greatest pain, lifelong depression, or anything like that, but it's a concrete situation that's you would like different. Okay? You look at your cluttered closets, you're committed to cleaning them up, but when you actually open the door to get started, you feel grief and you go off and eat a pint of ice cream. Right? A good one for me right now is I'm pretty committed about making a move out of Oakland, but every time I think about it, I get confused and overwhelmed and I can't figure out how to get traction. That's a good one. Yeah. I want this as unenlightened as possible, my friends. Not in the version of, we'll do the closets again. I won't give myself permission to have cleanness in my presence because I am engaging in loyalty with my father who blah, blah, blah. Just drop all that stuff off. Yeah? No enlightened stuff for a moment. Just the observables. I want to have clean closets. I can't find what I need. Every time I open the door, I have this reaction and I go do this other thing instead. Yeah? One or 2 or 3 sentences at most of 3 to 5 of those. Okay. Again, and a simple one could be like, me and my brother keep fighting over the inheritance. That's pretty weighty, right? But it is concrete, yeah? It could be a health thing, yeah? The last couple of weeks, me and menopause have been wrestling with each other. So it could be me and, I'm having this sort of reproductive discomfort that my doctors have not been able to figure out, and it's got me a little on edge. That's a good one. Yeah. So things like this. Yeah. So you'll have a little bit of time to think about these. However, I want to do an immediate demo. So anyone, in a moment, I'm going to ask for a volunteer. So you have one come quickly, you may raise your hand. Um, uh, and here's what I want to invite you to do. When I start demoing with someone, what I'm going to do is ask the person in those really simple terms in a sentence or two or three, give me the situation, not a lot of story, thank you very much, just the thing. And everyone else, really listen to what the person's saying. But not only listen, but start doing what I'm going to be talking about a lot here, which is essentially a kind of representational perception for those of you who know what that means, yeah? It's beginning to step into the client's system with them, even as they're just talking about this problem. Yeah? And you may notice yourself starting to get access. That's funny, I just feel some sadness. She didn't mention sadness, but all of a sudden I felt some sadness. Or some anger. She didn't mention anger, but all of a sudden I felt some anger. Yeah. I want you to start just noticing your responses, reactions, self-talk, emotional states as you really closely listen. Okay? So this is where we're going to start right off into practice. So if you think you've got a good, like really sort of easy to kind of put in the bucket kind of thing for us to start with as a demo, like a really good demo thing, go ahead and raise your hand and let me know you'd like to volunteer for that. Excellent. Thank you, Twyla. Did I say that right? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes.
Thank you. So in a sentence or two, what's the thing? And
Well, I'm
everyone,
going.
hold on. Everyone just really listen, okay? Just really listen. Go ahead.
I find I'm going deaf.
Ooh.
Yeah, and it's I noticed at work, because I work as a teacher in a public school, and this situation really hasn't helped very much at all. But at the same time, I've gone to an audiologist, and they definitely said I have hearing loss. I'm not quite a candidate for hearing aids.
Okay. So
Okay.
yeah. So so I have a follow-up question, but hold on one moment. The first thing I felt when she said I'm going deaf was panic. It's like, I mean, I literally, mostly internally in my body, it wasn't really visible, but it was like, it's kind of a shock or a panic feeling. So, are you losing your hearing, or have you gotten a diagnosis that you can expect to go deaf in some future time?
I am losing my hearing. I have worse hearing loss on the left than on the right. And the Veterans Administration says that I need to wait a year or two before I get the hearing aids, because they're not bad enough yet. But I find I can't understand what the heck's going on around me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So what I'm doing is I'm stepping this into with her. You see, my eyes are kind of going out this way because I just want to feel into it and really listen to the words and noticing the I'm going deaf. That was the first thing she said. I'm going deaf. That was very strong. And the rest of it is a lot of sort of managing the medical world and all of the consequences. And by the way, I have a bad habit of covering my mouth when I talk, so feel free to put in the chat anyone who has this issue. Take your hands off your mouth, Leslie. Is managing. So I'm going deaf. So what I'm doing here is trying to find a healing sentence, and I'm doing this live in front of all of you. And I will say more about what I'm doing in a moment. So I have a piece of it now. I want to let you know I'm getting an image in my mind. So I'm working with it. And as a facilitator, I might wonder if I'm actually hooking into something ancestral, an actual event. But the image is as of someone falling off a cliff. They're in the process of falling. And they know they're not going to be caught. They haven't landed yet. Yeah. But they're falling. And so I'm trying to turn that into words. And then I watched Twyla's response to that, and she did a little nod. She did a little nod. I watch for that sort of thing. Because if you're off course, you can read it on someone's face, right? Here it is. I have it. And I want to say, so I was working with that image. What are the right words? I got, I'm falling and no one's going to catch me. Yeah, that's true, but it didn't have any oomph. No one will catch me. How does it land for you, Twyla?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. I didn't even realize that was a thing. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, this is an odd thing. And then when you said something about lots of stuff about managing treatments, and then the cliff and falling and not knowing, I'm like, ooh, my whole face exploded. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the type of healing sentence. It isn't about moving her to the next step. Like, how do we help her deal with this? Right? That would, yeah. It's just it's a healing statement with respect to the order of love that honors what is. Yeah. And we gave voice to like the worst fear. And my guess is that this image, no one's going to catch me, is a lifelong relevant primary statement. Yeah, it's not just about the hearing. Yeah. And may even be relevant to people before you're born. That's where I get some of the transgenerational pieces. Okay. So some healing statements are trying to help move something forward, and some just, we've just got to deal with what is right now, and it hasn't been named well yet, and that's this kind. Twyla, thank you very much. We'll let that move in you. Okay, and thank you for sharing that. That's really vulnerable. We wish you a lot of good luck and blessings as you wrestle with the medical care establishment and your body's changes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's have one more volunteer. Go ahead and raise your hand. Yeah, Amy.
Hi, Leslie.
And again, so really simple, just the gist of it. And everyone listen.
Getting paid work.
That's a little too much of the gist of it, a little bit more.
Okay. I'm doing a lot of work that's unpaid, and every time that I think of an idea that can get me paid work, I experience a paralysis.
Okay, thank you. So again, I'm just sharing my process. I'm annotating. The 3D part for Twyla was I'm going deaf, right? Which she may or may not be doing, right? Right? That was the little reframe I wanted to sort of slip in there. Yeah. Um, the one here is just 2 words: paid work. Paid work. Um, it was like blah 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 blah, paid work, blah 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 blah, paid work, blah, 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 paid work. um, and I heard the other words too, but it had that quality, yeah. And it's like every time I step into her paid work, meaning not Leslie's but hers, um, it's like a push me pull you. I feel like, yeah, that's what I want. It's a little aggro, yeah, but in a good way. Like, "Ugh." But it's also like, it, I don't want that. That sounds horrible. It sounds like a total drag. Paid work. Ugh, 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 ugh. Right? Okay. I'm feeling a pull in and a move away. Hence the other word, paralysis. Use the word paralysis. Okay. And yet, I mean, this is my presupposition. There are exceptions to this, but since she brought up the topic, I am assuming she really wants to be paid for her work. I mean, that's what, most of us here want that, right? We got bills to pay. We want to be compensated for our work, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm in relationship with that. And then when I find myself honoring and mirroring Amy's genuine, dignified desire for paid work, I feel grief. Because in this push me, pull you, there's no place for the simple dignity of wanting to be paid for one's work. Right? It's almost too violent. It's got some weird violence going on in it. Okay, so I'm going to try this sentence. And Amy, you have to let me know if this lands for you and if it touches something conscious. It may be something unconscious. I don't know. Maybe something
Mm-hmm.
conscious. But the sentence is I honor it was that way for you, but I don't want it to be that way for me.
Yeah, that lands.
Do you know who the you is?
I'm sensing it was my mother. That was who immediately came to mind when I said those words in my head. That was who I was addressing. My mother is deceased, and I sense what was it again? I sense it was that way for
I
you.
honor that it
Oh,
was that way for you. And I'm referring to the push pull, the paralysis, the violence. Yeah. I
hmm,
regret it was that way for you, but I don't want it that way for me. Or I honor. I
hmm.
honor it was that way for you.
I honor that it was that way for you, but I don't want it to be that way for me. And I regret it was that way for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Both
honor.
and. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Both and. I regret and honor. Yeah. Yeah. That it was that way for you. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, I regret and honor it was that way for you, but it doesn't need to be that way for me.
Yeah. Take out the need. That's too enlightened. Um,
I don't want.
We can put, if we want to put it in the positive, I want it to be different for me.
I want it to be different for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we can
Yeah, that
imagine your mother
Mm.
saying, I would love it to be different for you. You betcha, my daughter. Yeah. And
Mm.
oh, I just want to say, when I felt into that push pull, there could have been something in Amy's personal childhood traumatic experience that matched that. Yeah. But the larger scale trauma, the things that we're all like, the stuff we're doing that's so self-defeating, and we know it's self-defeating. Why am I doing this thing? Yeah.
Mm.
Behind it, there's usually an ancestral trauma with with greater impact than the impact in our lives. Someone died, someone suffered immensely, someone was thrown out of the family, something big. And that's what I felt in that push pull was some historical event, some really bad historical event. So it's your mother, but she may also be entangled with something before her.
It feels bigger than just her. Her
Yeah,
face was the most immediate access, but
yeah,
I agree that it felt like that kind of swirliness, which goes to something,
yeah.
yeah, deep.
Yeah. So you might imagine if we set up a constellation, the healing sentence for your mother's representative would be looking at her ancestors. I honor it was that way for you, but I don't want it that way for my daughter. So just take a moment and hear your mother, like be in the presence of your mother saying that to her beloved ancestors. Okay.
Mm.
I honor it was that way for you, but I don't want it that way for my daughter.
Mm.
And just receive that love from your mother, right? And the power of her memorializing the past.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see almost like a golden like wall of light, almost like sort of blocking, or not maybe blocking, but just it's sort of what was moving down, like a kind of current of water that would be moving down and moving towards me, then like
Yeah.
turning back,
Yeah. Yeah.
or like a river being rerouted.
Yeah. Okay. Leave it there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Okay. Thank you to both of you. I know that I did that demo kind of like boing, not much context, not much introduction, but I actually wanted to throw you into it a little bit. I wanted to let you witness that on the one hand, it can be messy. You need to get more information. You didn't get it quite right the first time. You get feedback from the client to tweak it. I'm going to ignore whatever that bell was about. I assume it's some delivery. Um, and uh, and on the other hand, um, you don't need tons of information. You need enough, but you don't necessarily need. The story's important. I mean, everything that's happening to Twyla with the medical care system, I'm sure she needs someone to listen and hear what she's dealing with in that journey. And we don't need all of that to get to another level. Yeah, that will be useful. Okay. So any quick comments or questions about that? I'm going to dive into the material now, but I want to just check if anyone has like, oh, I need to ask something or say something about what I just witnessed. Huh? People ready for the talky part? Okay. And it comes with slides, of course. So I'm going to go grab the screen. You will get these slides later, so take the notes that are useful for you. Okay. Okie dokies. So everyone can see that. Please, someone shout out loud because I can't see all your faces. If you can't see it, should say
Yeah, I can see.
primary and secondary
Yes.
emotions at the top. All good? Okay.
Yes.
So, to start out with, I actually have to tackle a different topic. um, because we cannot talk about healing sentences without talking about Bert Hellinger's teaching on primary and secondary emotions, which you can find on 2 pages of Love's Hidden Symmetry, which I had out here recently, but I don't see it right now. Where'd you go? You've all seen Love's Hidden Symmetry. If you're newer to constellations work and you do not have Love's Hidden Symmetry on your library and on your shelf, it is the one book I insist my students get. And as I said, it's summarized in these 2 pages. If you don't have it and you live in the United States, the least expensive and easiest way to get it is to go to a website called Hellinger DC. And I could put that in the chat later, or someone who knows Hellinger DC's site can put that in the chat. My apologies, I don't have a ready resource for people internationally. Amazon is not a good solution. It's like $100 there. But it's a really important and lovely book. For those of you with psychology, psychotherapy, clinical psychotherapy backgrounds, you may say, oh, I've heard of primary and secondary emotions. I already know about these. My apologies. Bert Hellinger used the same labels for a different phenomena. So if you think you know what primary and secondary emotions are from your psychology background, put it aside for a moment. He means something a little different. And this is what he means. Primary emotions are emotions that come, do the job, and go. When you have them and express them, they give you dignity and weight, and they are, in a sense, attractive, not in the sense of pretty, but in the sense of when you express them, whether it's anger or sadness or fear or whatever, they tend to draw people towards you because the strength and the dignity is attractive. It draws people closer. Yeah. With reference to Twyla's, no one's going to catch me. That's a negative emotion, right? In quotation marks. Yeah. It's got fear in it. It has a certain kind of despair in it. Yeah. But spoken, it has strength. It does something and it kind of draws you in. Yeah. Secondary are quite different. They loop. They generate more of the same. So you express the emotion and it causes more of the same emotion, which causes more of the same emotion, which causes more of the same emotion. It's a perpetual motion machine. Therefore, they actually lessen your dignity and weight and strength. They actually, as Bert Hellinger puts it, are an assertion of your helplessness. Look at me, I am helpless. I cannot be helped. Yeah. And they are, in that sense, therefore, unattractive. And I don't mean unappealing or ugly or anything like that. What it means is that people may be temporarily drawn to try and help, but eventually they will figure out there's nothing they can do and they'll get tired and they'll move away. Okay. So the thing that's really important about this for the purposes of our conversation, by the way, I can do 3 hours on primary and secondary emotions. I have to control myself on this topic. When I sort of really got this, everything changed for me in my facilitating, okay? Once you start to notice the difference between constellations that are moving forward in primary emotions and constellations that are moving forward in secondary emotions, you cannot unsee it. They are very different animals. Both Bert Hellinger And a woman by the name of Ursula Franke, one of the early constellation people, she came out of German psychotherapy. They both underline is that psychotherapy is often sort of caught or stuck because the therapy, all those 50-minute hours, is just another looping of secondary emotions. And that's why it goes on and on and on. It has the impression of discharging something, but it doesn't. It doesn't actually contain the capacity for movement. It has the impression of what we would call catharsis, but 6 months later, the person is still dealing with low self-esteem and fear of spiders or whatever it is, yeah? This is because, and now to move to some of the trauma language, that there's a lot of overlapping categories here with trauma material. One cannot learn, which is a way to talk about healing. It's learning, yeah? Healing is learning, yeah? When you are in secondary emotions, or what in trauma we call a state of dysregulation. So the 5th grader whose parents are fighting at home and they're almost always dysregulated because their home life is nuts, they go to school and try and learn fractions and they can't. They just can't. Yeah? Because they're too emotionally dysregulated. When we're dysregulated, it's almost impossible to learn. Therefore, as facilitators, and that is the same essentially as secondary emotions, that looping thing. For those of you who are trauma informed, you know, one of the highlights of like the consequences of trauma in PTSD, complex trauma, is that people repeat. Yeah. So you get beat up by your dad when you're a kid, you seek out partners who will beat you up. That's kind of usually it's more nuanced than that, but that's a nice explicit version of it, yeah? Or the war vet who hears a truck backfiring and immediately they're on the battlefield, right? It's that repetition compulsion, which the intention is to complete or finish, but actually does the opposite. It reinforces and keeps it going. Yeah. That's the same thing with the looping. It has the impression of doing something useful. We all know this state when you get triggered, when you're in your particular spin, you know yours, I know mine, right? It feels very convincing and necessary and useful, and it is not. And if we can find the place where we go, what's the thing that really matters underneath this spin I'm doing, this loop I'm doing, this pattern I'm doing? Yeah. Oh, I'm actually really hurt. Oh, I'm actually really scared. Oh, he momentarily reminded me of my father, but he isn't, right? When you can get to that place, now you've got some traction. You're in primary, you can move forward. As facilitators, we actually have an obligation to assist constellations to function more often in primary than in secondary. And one of the great tools we have for getting there is healing sentences. Healing sentences, and this is the nice thing about a good healing sentence, is that done in rapport and well-timed, and I'm going to get to that in a moment, the system does not resist it. This is the surprising bit about it. Now, when it is timed, when its timing is off, right? When it is out of rapport, it will be resisted, yeah? And we've all experienced that. But well-timed and in rapport, again, I'm going to get to that in a moment. These reframes, that's what they are in neurolinguistic programming, reframes, These healing sentences create a relief and a release. Oh, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted named. All of us have been, it's a wonderfully counterintuitive movement in a constellation in which, you know, you're kind of chunking along and it's going okay, but it hasn't really gotten anywhere yet. It's fine, but yeah, we're not there yet. And you bring in the perpetrator, the parent, the Nazis, the slaveholders, whatever it is. Yeah, you finally bring that in. And this is not good news, like it's the perpetrator, right? But you bring it in and everyone goes, finally. It feels better to have included that. Like, you can remember, I'm sure for those of you who have participated in constellations, that moment. Whew. That's what a good healing sentence does. Yeah. And it is not resisted. The last thing I want to say about this is it's based on this old Zen koan. Secondary emotions point to the moon. Look, this trauma happened, this thing, this really important thing. Primary emotions are the moon. They are the thing that needs to be said. Yeah? Therefore, this is a hint for us. And not to, by the way, to demonize secondary emotions, which is a temptation, yeah? We need to listen very closely to the secondary emotions because they're pointing to the primary, or trying to, yeah? Okay. So this is really important material. Now, this working with representatives, therefore, most of us, not all of us, some of us, I just want to say a few words about this. If you work one-on-one, this is not super relevant, but it can be a bit relevant to actually working with the client themselves and how they're talking about their problem, which can be loaded with layers of secondary emotions that they feel is very important to communicate and may or may not be that important, and in fact, maybe keeping them from moving forward. That's so tricky. Right? But working with representatives in constellations, representatives come in and if they're mother or father or the brother or whoever, they immediately have an unconscious loyalty to the role. It's very fast. And they're often not fully aware that their awareness of the whole system is limited by being in that role. Yeah? And the first thing most representatives have access to, this is the reason why I'm bringing it up, is secondary emotions. So when you have representatives who say, it's her fault, it's all her, fuck you, God damn it, I just want to, kill you, or, I want to kick her, these things that people say, it's very convincing. We've all been in these roles, right? I need to say this. This has to go on the record. And yet it's actually not helping the system. Okay? Representatives can get fascinated by their experience, very loyal to it. And so we need the skill as facilitators to help them get underneath the secondary material that they're really noticing and they're starting to care about quite a bit. So we need to help them move into their primary emotions. Help them slow down, slow down. Thank you. That's really good information, but hold on for a moment. Just slow down for a second. Yeah. Invite them into their dignity. Questions like what's underneath this? What does that mean really? And healing sentences can really help representatives shift gears into something that's actually way more useful than what they think is useful. Yeah? So if they're busy blaming everybody else, it's her fault, it's his fault, it's not my fault, everyone, that sort of thing. You might say, thank you for all of that. That's the rapport. Don't correct them. Thank you. Thank you for that information. I'm going to slow you down. What is underneath all that blame? What's important underneath all that blame? Well, it's her fault. No, I got it. That's really important. Thank you. But there's something underneath that that's not about blame. What is it? And they blink a little bit and they say, if I take any responsibility for this, I think they'll kill me. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Now we've got a primary statement, right? This can, so that's sort of off course a little bit. That's not about healing sentences per se. Healing sentences can support this sort of thing, okay? This kind of movement to primary material. Now, I've been saying rapport and timing is really, really, really important, okay? By the way, my apologies. People are seeing me move the screen, right? Yes? Good, excellent. We're now on rapport and timing. That's the big title. We can't simply maneuver a constellation into primary emotions with our authority. Yeah? Knock it off with all that blaming other people. I want you to start taking responsibility and I want you to do it now. Like, yeah, you're going to lose trust and rapport. Right? Now, here's a moment where I refer to our dear founder, Bert Hellinger, who's a very fierce character. Right? And I say that with a great deal of love and affection. He is a magic worker, yeah? He is like the village shaman who you go to for help and you expect to be kind of scared, right? If you're not a little scared, it's not the shaman doing their job, right? We are not the village shaman, mostly. We actually need to tend to rapport, pacing, and timing. Yeah. Very frequently, I see this all the time with people who are new to the work. They see the movement that needs to happen, like they figure out the movement that the system needs. This system needs to grieve this loss. This system needs to admit that this violation happened. This system needs the client to be small and let the ancestors be big. You can see it, right? Yeah. The dilemma is, and this is something that comes with the art and practice of the work, is it may not be the first thing that needs to happen. Okay. A classic version of this, we've all seen this probably if you've been in trainings or even in live workshops where the facilitator asks the client to say something like, you are big and I am small. That's a classic healing sentence, right? You are big and I am small. Thank you for my life. And you try it and the representative for the client says, I don't want to say that. That doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel safe. Well, you can try harder and make them say it. Yeah, you can do that. Or you can say, I wonder what needs to happen here first. Very often what needs to happen first is acknowledgement of a violation. Yeah, which is another order of love, which is around acknowledging trespasses and violations. Yeah, that might need to come first before the system is ready to have the client be small. Yeah. So notice when your healing sentences don't work, what might have been missed on the way to this very beautiful, perfect healing sentence. Yeah. And the bold thing I have at the bottom, that's me. That's Leslie's quotation. I just say it to my students over and over again. And write this one down. Engrave this on your heart. If there is still resistance, something hasn't been included yet. Now, the reason why I name this a lot, again, for those of you from the psychotherapy world, there is a history using the language of resistance that goes something like, the therapy failed because the patient was resistant. Yeah, you may or may not have heard that, but it is part of the history of clinical psychotherapy. Maybe not so much now. Which is a not so subtle way to blame the client for the fact that things didn't work out. If the representative doesn't want to say what you're asking them to say, or the system is not settling into the next movement you think is supposed to be coming, or the client isn't ready to do or say something, honor that. It means something hasn't been included yet. And our job, therefore, as the facilitator, is to get curious. Okay, there's resistance. What might need to come first? Unfortunately, that wasn't demonstrated well in my two examples. I had a great example where yesterday where I offered a healing sentence and it wasn't quite right. It was a little timing off. Client let me know. Yeah. And I just went, oh, okay. I wonder what needs to be included first. Right? And I played around until I found it. Yeah. I want to acknowledge that we have limitations around time, energy, resources. And, we may have exhausted the energy of the room, right? To get to what needs to be included. And you can turn to the client and say, I don't know what it is, but something really important still needs to be included. And this is how far we can go today. Right? But we don't force an ending that the system isn't ready for just because we got tired. We acknowledge that something important and we end wherever the system has been able to get up until that point in time. Yeah, so I want to honor those limitations. Okay, now getting a little bit into the nittier grittier. There are two kinds of healing sentences. The first are stock healing sentences. For those of you who have been around constellations, you have heard many of these. If you've watched Bert Hellinger's videos, read his books, attended workshops with famous people or their students, you've heard at least some of these. And there are many, 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 many more. There are a few things I want to say about stock healing sentences. They're often not liked because people pull them out and try and slap them on a situation, and they don't feel good. You turn to the client and you say, can you please say, you are big and I am small? And the timing is off, the rapport is off. It's not, it's whatever, right? So rapport and timing are still relevant with stock healing sentences. Having said that, I love them. I love, 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 love them. I consider them transmissions from the heart of the universe to the heart of the practitioner to the heart of the systems we work with. When they are in rapport and they are timed properly. The other reason why people can have some tension with them is that the next thought is, well, how do I acquire them? Do I do flashcards? Do I memorize them? That sort of thing. If flashcards are your thing, great, go for it. Memorize some stock healing sentences. But for most people, that's not how they acquire them. And don't try to. And don't feel like you have to. The reason why I have a lot of them that are in my toolkit now that I pull out automatically without having to think about them very much now is because I've spent a lot of time in a lot of constellations hearing these over and over and over and over and over and over again. Most of them just go in unconsciously after having heard them enough and said them enough as a representative in other people's constellations. Yeah. That's a great way to get them, by the way, is represent in a lot of constellations. Yeah. But also, if I go to somebody's workshop, a weekend workshop, a week-long workshop, a conference, I try to take home one or two. I hear one, I go, oh, that's a good one, and I try to retain that one. I can still tell you from Stefan Hausner's workshop of a few years ago, he was working with a client whose parents fought. There was a lot of estrangement between the parents, mutual injury between the parents. And that's very difficult for the child because they feel like in order to be here, their parents had to cause each other mutual suffering, and that makes the child feel guilty and bad. Yeah. That happened to be my situation growing up. And so this healing sentence really struck me, which was, dear parents, I see what it costs you. I leave the burden of that with you. Thank you for my life. Boom. And I've used it a million times since, because having estranged parents, this has been a great one for children of divorce. Used it over and over and over again. Okay, so that's what I want to say that about healing, stock healing sentences. However, most of you are not here for that. Most of you are here because you're like, how do I make, ones on the fly, or what I call custom healing sentences. That's what most of this workshop is about. There are two kinds of those. One that's easier and one that's trickier. Okay, so the easier kind, might take a complex representative report or a client story and turn it into something simple and strong. Okay, so you take out all the fluff and all the, my right hand is cold, and I don't know, I'm confused, and all this stuff, and you boil it down into something strong. These are rarely resisted because you're just basically saying what was just said, just in simpler terms. When it lands, it gives the role weight and dignity and encourages overall system flow. They're usually towards the beginning of a constellation, and these are generally easier for facilitators to come up with. And sometimes you're actually using the actual words of the representative. Yeah. So this is very common. Someone has started and you say, how are you feeling? What are you noticing? And the representative says, I don't know. I can't quite find my place here. The other people are confusing and I'm still looking. And I said, can you please just say, I can't find my place here? Boom. Right? So you actually, this is the interesting thing about moving from secondary to primary. It might even be the same words, but with a different energy. Yeah? Yeah, in the first version, it was like, blah, 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 blah. It's just kind of looping. It's not going anywhere. It's not doing anything, but it's pointing to something. And you heard, I can't find my place here. Ooh, let's get that one on the record in primary. Yeah? And this is why I often have to remind my representatives, please, no drama. Say it really simply, because at that point, someone will say, I can't find my place here. I'm like, no. Just say as really simply, I can't find my place here. Yeah. Boom, I can't find my place here. Now it's on the record. Now something else can show up. Okay? This is a great place to practice in your constellations, in your, you get together with friends or with clients to just try and really listen. Like when I was listening to Amy and the words paid work, boom. Like listen for those 3D phrases that are lost in a lot of blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And you can test it. Again, I really want to say you don't need, it may seem I'm brilliant sometimes, but when I said that about paid work, it's blah, 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 paid work. I saw Amy nod her head. I went, oh, I'm in the clear. It's resonating, right? I look for that. Is this landing? Am I on the right track? Is it going, Because if I had seen her sort of push back and squinch her face a bit, that's the message of you're not hearing me well. And then I backtrack. So really being paying attention to the client or the representative or whoever you're interacting with. Get that feedback. Okay, the second kind really includes what hasn't been included and leads to movement. Yeah, this can be resisted because it's it's a movement. Yeah, I did say, and I mean it, if it's in rapport and the timing is right, it really isn't resisted. Yeah, but if it's not quite exactly right or it's the wrong timing, it can be resisted. So it needs nuance, it needs rapport, it needs timing. There are many resolutions on their own basis, and these can be a little trickier to come up with. Okay. So to create sentences that make for movement, the second kind, I want to say, and this is not an Orders of Love workshop, so I'm not going to go into a review on the Orders of Love. If you don't know what the Orders of Love are, or you need a reminder on that, that's something to find some resources for. This is why in my trainings, I really return to the Orders of Love over and over again, because the facilitator who has a sense of the orders of love that are out of order in a system can just feel it and notices it. That's a facilitator that's moving towards mastery, right? Instead of just kind of anything, we're just going to open the field and see what's there, right? Feeling for the orders of love and noticing that they're out of order, like something is not being included. Yeah? Something is not being honored. Some seniority or precedence is upside down. Some violation has not been acknowledged. There's an imbalance in the giving and taking. I'm referring to the orders of love, yeah? When you can sense this and feel this and notice this in the information you're getting, these are your indications about what's needed in a healing sentence. Okay? Along with the sense of timing, right? Again, you may notice something that's out of order, but it's just not the right time to attend to it. A different order needs to come first. My apologies, there is no hierarchy with the orders of love. It is specific to each system. You need to get the feedback, yeah, from the system itself. I'll give you an example because someone asked me a question about this in the last workshop. How do you know? Like, yeah. So many of us have done constellations for people who have ancestral genocide or systemic oppressions, like the Holocaust or slavery or Cherokee Walk of Tears, that kind of thing. What I have found, for instance, for Holocaust constellations, there's a few different kinds. There isn't just one kind. Yeah. I have ones where what is needed is to look at the victim perpetrator dynamic. We need to bring in Nazis and Jewish victims. We need to work out the victim perpetrator interaction because that's been part of the client's dilemma in life, is the victim perpetrator dynamic. In other ones, I actually remember one where I brought that up and the constellation was just ignoring, like, there are Nazis here and it's just getting ignored. This is interesting. So I put it aside and I just put a lot of dead people on the floor. And all the parents just needed to grieve the immensity of the loss. That was getting feedback from the system about what order needs to happen first. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the sense of timing bit. A few practical matters to bring this lecture to a close. Good news! You don't need to be perfect. Okay? This is why I'm talking about paying attention to people's reactions, the feedback in the system. Are you trying something but no reaction is happening? Yeah? Change gear, change direction, try something different. When you offer up a healing sentence and you're 80% of the way there, representatives can often give you the final 20%. I'll give you a beautiful example of this. It was so gorgeous. It put the hairs on the back of my neck up. Two representatives were interacting, and I asked one representative to say to the other one, "It broke my heart when you left me." I thought, that's it. That's the healing sentence. Yeah. And the representative said, "Can I change it a little bit?" And I said, "Of course." And she said, "It broke my heart when I left you." Ooh. Like, I got it 80% of the way there, and the representative took it the final 20%. Yeah. Representatives usually can't come up with these completely from scrap. But if you get them 80% of the way there, they can usually get you the rest of the way there. Okay? So trust your representatives' report about how it lands for them. There can be times where you say, I just want you to try it and see what happens. And they can be surprised to find it lands better than they thought, right? But if they try it and they're like, yeah, and you can feel like, yeah, that's not having the response I thought. I got it. What I'm inviting you to do, and this is how I understand it. Other people talk about intuition. I actually don't talk about intuition much. I invite you into your basic mammal level capacity right back here in the limbic system. We share it with meerkats. We share it with wolves. The basic ability to sense the emotional tone of the system. You do this every time you walk into a business meeting. You have no idea what's happened, but you can feel the tension. Or you can feel that the meeting's going well. Yeah? How do you do that? It's that basic mammal level sense of the fear or the anger or the grief or the okayness of a system. It's one of the mammal level geniuses of evolution. It's this ability to feel the system. However, very usefully, a lot of that is running on unconscious, right? It's a good thing. We're just running with the herd. We don't take time to ask, should I run? Otherwise, you're going to be hawk lunch, right? You trust the herd system and you just have an automatic reaction. As facilitators, we need to bring those automatic awarenesses of the emotional state of the system up to consciousness. Yeah? This system is frightened. This system is angry. This system is completely lacking energy. This helps you sense If a system is taut or fraught, yeah, that healing sentence didn't work. Or it relaxed. It feels safer now. It worked. Yeah, to notice the feedback. And a lot of what I say is increasing your mastery as facilitators is to notice what you notice. And just to move it, it's not completely unconscious, that's actually inaccurate. It's more subconscious. And to move it from subconscious to conscious. I want to give you a really good example of this. This is not about healing sentences per se, but it's the same movement. And I love telling this story because it shares with you my deep teaching that you do not need to be perfect at this. You can be imperfect. You can bring your imperfect self to this work and be a great facilitator, and what these movements are like. So I was working with a constellation in which the mother had done some terrible things to the client. The client very understandably wished the mother was different than the way she was, right? Totally understandable. I was working with the representative for the mother, and I was doing everything I could to resource this person, to acknowledge her history of being abused, to get her support, to bring love in for her, all the things to resource the mother, in preparation for the mother taking responsibility for the things that she had done to the client. Yeah. The role, the mother was not receiving any of the support and was utterly stuck in blame. And I was getting frustrated. This damn mother is not accepting any of the love we're giving her, and she's still blaming, and I like, we were getting cranked up. Yeah, who's been there? Yeah, frustrated with a representative, frustrated with a role, and we were stuck. I tried this and that, and the other thing wasn't working, and I stood back and I took the time to notice I was frustrated. I didn't make myself wrong for it, even though it was wrong, yeah, at a certain level. Shouldn't get frustrated with your representatives, yeah. But instead of making myself wrong, I just got curious about my frustration. And I just took a moment to like look around. What is going on here? And then I went and I sat down and I turned to the whole group and I said, if in any way you need this woman to be any different than the way she is, please let it go right now. And what I realized is that the whole system of the constellation circle had gotten caught up in the client's need for mom to be different. Understandable childhood need for mom to be different. And it was not helping. That was secondary emotions. That was trauma emotions, right? And I asked the whole room to let go of the need for mom to be different. And everyone did it just kind of automatically, just kind of a hypnotic suggestion almost. They just immediately did it. And within about 30 seconds, the representative for the mother said, I think maybe I have some responsibilities here. Because we had stopped pushing up against her. Yeah. So, sensing and noticing what you're noticing. Take the time, slow yourself down enough to notice. The answer is there somewhere. Do you know what you need to slow yourself down and to get access to just noticing what's going on? Yeah. Be transparent. It puts the system at ease. That's a good story to, I just shared with the group what was going on. And try not to be too rigid, too pushy, or fussy. Share that for the rare occasion when you really need to use your authority. This, again, is a place where imitating our dear founder is not what I recommend most of the time. Yeah. You will need it on occasion. Yeah. But only on occasion. Yeah. Okay. So that is my front-loaded information. So can I give some examples of secondary emotions? Beth said about a half hour ago. Yes. So I want to be very clear about this. There's no category of emotions that are secondary or primary. Any emotion can be one or the other. Okay. So one version might be, it's all my fault. I'm a terrible person. I should be, no wonder no one likes me. I don't like myself. I'm just terrible, versus, I did that. I take responsibility for that. I regret having done that. Yeah? Those are two versions of guilt. But the one is just going to loop. There's no way in. It's not going to stop. Its own perpetual motion machine. And the second one is actually effective. It does something. I think you've all had the gorgeous, well, I shouldn't say all. Those of you who have represented in constellations and have had the gift and the honor of representing a perpetrator, that beautiful moment where you shift out of blaming or whatever and into, wow, what I did cannot be undone. I see you now. I take responsibility. The bizarre thing, it feels good. It actually feels good. That's the orders of love for you, right? When we're in the orders of love, the system feels better. Even if what the perpetrator is doing is naming that they slaughtered 1,000 people, right? Yeah. This is remarkable business. Yeah. Hopefully that's helpful, Beth. And you can, once you start noticing this difference in yourself and in others, you can feel your own reaction to being in the presence of different emotions, your own pull away or your own pull towards someone in these different states. Yeah. Ursula Franke is kind of, she gets very honest because she's a psychotherapist of many years. And she writes, the truth is that therapists come to dislike their clients who are in secondary emotions a lot. And we kind of can't help it, sorry. That's why we need the skill to help. We need to appreciate secondary emotions and why they're there. The appreciation is that it comes out of trauma, always, whether it's the personal trauma of the person or the systemic entangled trauma that they're exposed to in the larger system. Yeah, it's a real trauma. So you appreciate that history, and then take the responsibility for helping the person to move into primary. Okay. So I want us to take a break pretty soon. But before we do that, any quick questions or shares about this? Before we move into our one bio break. And then we'll move into really more doing stuff. Is this reframing anything for people? Maybe this is bringing old constellations to mind, something for yourself, or just a flat out question. Yeah, Beth, go ahead.
Well, I can just share, I had a really exquisite one a couple weeks ago in a constellation being done for me. And the timing of the sentence was so perfect. And it was basically around my maternal lineage and like being good. And this understanding, the line was, you had to be good in one way and I get to be good in a different way.
Ooh, that is good.
It was so good. And this is Bruce Naowith, to give credit. And both the person who was representing me and me burst out crying. It was so spot on and so in the moment. It was just...
All of us can feel that right now.
Yeah.
Right? That's a good, that could go on the list of stock healing sentences.
Mm.
It's that good.
I thought so. Yeah.
And what I like about it is trying to find the win-win. Can we find, this is often very tricky when a client or role in a constellation has a legitimate grievance. And can we find a way, I see Kay naming it again, we'll do that in a second. Can we do that in a way that acknowledges and says yes to the grievance, but isn't getting us in a blame loop? And that takes some fancy footwork sometimes, but this is an excellent example of it. It's a really good example of being able to be in the thing you needed to say that was really, really, really important, that needed to go on the record, that didn't require someone to be bad for you to be seen and heard and honored. That's so gorgeous. So go ahead and say the sentence again, because Kay wants to hear it again.
It was saying to my maternal lineage, you had to be good in one way. And we were doing it around kind of the good girl
Yeah.
idea. You had to be good in one way. I get to be good in another way, other ways. And yeah, Leslie, it was like, by the end of the constellation, it was also just this, everything belongs, everything has a place. And what I said in reflection, I was like, I just feel like there was nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And that was such a beautiful thing, because I had this whole story of, my ancestors couldn't do anger, so I've not, but like, you can just
Right,
get
yeah, yeah.
judgy of what they had to do to survive and what you didn't end up getting because they didn't have it. But there was, that sentence just made it all like nothing's wrong, and I just get to live it in a different way, right? So.
And the icing on the cake would be something like experiencing different ways of being good. We get to share being good together.
Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And so it gets to underline the common ground, which is really, without erasing the difference. Right? No false unity. Right? No spiritual bypassing here. Yeah. Okay. So what I want to do here, I think, is a quick bio break. Thank you for that example, Beth. That's beautiful. So it's 28 after, 29. It just turned over. 29 after. Could you please come back at 34 after? And we'll dive in again. So the next thing that I want to do is actually, it's time to get started. Come on back. The next thing I want to do is actually demo a very brief constellation. This again could be a a partial piece of work for somebody. And what I'm going to be doing, to the best of my ability, is trying to demo healing sentences, okay? And explaining where I'm coming up with them. The best kind of constellation for me to facilitate right now is a really simple system, like you in your closets, you and your brother that you're having a conflict with, and something that doesn't require much to explain, okay? Truly, I'm going to have to be kind of disciplined about this. Please get into your primary emotions and kind of what's the core of the thing that, again, you're willing to have recorded and seen by others. And so if you think you may have a really simple system, a really simple thing, it was one of the things you maybe brainstormed in the beginning, Go ahead and raise your hand and let me know that you might like to have a very brief constellation. Okay, so I saw Arena's hand go up. Anybody else think that they might like? Okay, so Eileen and Alexis had their hands go up. Okay, so you three unmute yourselves, and you get one sentence to tell me your thing, and I'll choose based on what I think might be the best demo. Okay, so Arena.
Yeah, just so in one sentence, it's I cannot rest no matter if I want to sleep or I sleep long hours, but there is a incapacity of a deep, deep rest.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Alexis.
I feel overwhelmed with house maintenance.
Okay, thank you. And Eileen.
Since the pandemic, I've been plunged into poverty.
How you lost your job or?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. This is where I like, oh, I want to help you all. And I think I'm going to work with arenas. Eileen kind of drew me in, but that's a big piece of work. There's something really big there. And hopefully the exercises you do with each other might be able to give you some primary information about that. And Alexis's as well, but let's just Arena, okay? So go ahead and unmute yourself, Arena. What I'm going to do here is just get a little bit of information. Is this a lifelong thing or a recent thing?
I think it's a lifelong thing.
Okay. And how do you know you don't get rest? Is it because you have sleep apnea, or you just always wake up tired, or?
Yeah, it's a deep, deep tiredness.
All the time?
Yeah. Or like, even like be just relax or be in that mode of okay, there is time where you're active and time where you relax, but that relaxation is rest is never really possible.
So does that mean your system is almost always a little bit in fight flight?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. That helps me understand. I just had to ask those questions because we could have been dealing with a sleep disorder, right? You know, I needed a little bit of sense of what it was. Thank you. Okay, so let's do something really simple, okay? Would you please choose, in a moment, if Arena chooses you to be a representative, again, make sure you can be seen. You don't need to get up unless for some reason as a representative you want to get up. We're not going to worry about changing names. We're just going to really bare bones this a little bit. I am going to spotlight you, the representatives. If you really don't want to be chosen right now, you can turn your video off. And if Arena asks you and you change your mind, you can just say to Arena, yeah, I don't think I want to be that. And Arena will not take it personally. She'll just choose somebody else. Okay? So would you please choose someone to represent you and someone to represent rest?
Eileen, would you like to represent me? Thank you.
She's so happy to be asked. Look at her face.
And Cheryl, would you like to represent rest?
Yes.
So Eileen, you are representing Arena. And Cheryl, you are representing rest in Arena's system. Yeah. And I'm just going to ask the two of you maybe to look at each other for a second. You're nice and big on the screen. Arena's representative, what are you noticing, please? And really, and again, I'm going to invite everybody like, oh, what's the underneath? What's the primary? Yeah.
I'm deeply sad and I can't have you.
Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate the first kind. Can you just say for the record, I can't have you?
I can't have you.
And now, Arena, I want you to know, and I'm sure you get it. I don't know who you is here, but I'm sure it's somebody. Somebody's saying this to somebody. Yeah. I don't know if it's ancestors or you to a parent or, yeah, or one of your parents saying it to the other parent. But that's not just your experience of rest. It's, yeah, I can't have you. I can't have you. Rest, what's going on for you?
Startle mode. The moment I was named, I froze in place. My hands are here. I froze.
What's it like to look at Arena?
I like looking at her.
Okay, that's nice. Can you say, I like looking at you?
I like looking at you.
Sometimes healing sentences are that simple. What else do you notice?
She seems more relaxed than I am.
So rest is representing somebody, Arena. Yeah. These two people are interacting like people. Arena's rep, how is this going on? How is this for you? What do you notice when rest says that to you?
He's looking at me, but he doesn't want me.
So your sense of the other one is that it's masculine or a male person.
Yes.
Okay. Does that land for you, Rest? I always take note of that, but I don't necessarily go 100% with it because gender can be tricky. But Rest, how does that land for you, the notion of someone male?
Could be.
Could be. Okay. So the masculinity aside, what is that one doesn't want, how did you put it? I'm sorry.
Doesn't want me.
That one doesn't want me. Is that your experience, Rest, that you don't want Arena?
No, it's somehow been interrupted. Like I'm frozen in a place of reaching, but halfway.
Can you say, I'd like to get to you, but I can't?
I'd like to get to you, but I can't.
It's not that I don't want to.
It's not that I don't want to.
No, so I just named it all in other simple words. It's exactly what the representative reported. I just put it in some direct systemic terms. Okay. How does that feel to say, Rust?
True.
Does it relax anything just to have your experience named? Or does it change anything? Let me not.
My hands are still frozen, but I feel like my head and neck can nod and move from that part. But my hands are still frozen.
Yeah. Arena's representative, how did it feel to you to hear that from Rust?
Like I was hearing something for the first time I didn't know.
Say that. I didn't know.
I didn't know.
I thought you didn't want me.
I thought you didn't want me.
So, Arena, the real Arena, how is
Mhm.
this landing for you?
It's interesting because um, mm, the vision I had were really ancestral, but there is a mix between ancestral and reality or today's life. So there's,
Yeah.
yeah, a mix in the two.
Let me just ask the obvious question here. I ask the obvious questions, which is this remind you of your father at all? Or
Mm,
of a male person's experience in your family?
mm-mm,
Okay, that's fine. Brother,
mm-mm.
spouse,
Right now, yeah,
right now. Okay. So this dynamic reminds you a little bit of a spousal. Okay.
sure.
Okay. So, do you have someone in your family lineage who was ever prevented by circumstances from being able to be with their loved ones?
Yeah.
Who was that?
My great grandfather and great grandmother were separate for a long, long time.
Okay. So, I want to be careful about my hypotheses in such a short piece of work,
Mhm,
but you and your spouse may be entangled with that.
mhm.
Okay. It's reflecting that. And then also this bit with the rest. I mean, imagine there are certain kinds of separations where, because of the separation, rest is no longer available.
Mhm.
Right?
Can I share what just happened just before we did this in the
Please.
5 minute break? I mean, the image that really came forth was a hole in um, in the ground and the notion of rest in peace, rest in peace, rest in peace,
Okay.
and definitely the trenches during World War One. And I'm saying that, and I'm like, ooh, it's
Yeah.
just like overwhelming me. Um,
Yeah, I mean, the sort of classic thing in families is that we won't let the dead rest because we can't bear that they died, right? So we don't let them rest, right? Because we can't, you know, let it, you know. And death is the great separator. Right? Okay, so back briefly to Arena's representative. What are you noticing as you've been listening in and also being in the constellation with this figure?
I feel more peaceful.
How so?
Like I understand something I've not understood before. This is new news
Which part?
that rest or whoever is represented by that also wanted me to, but couldn't get to me.
Can you say, I can see your love now?
I can see your love now.
I love you too.
I love you too.
Does that feel right or okay?
Yes, feels very true.
Okay. And the one formerly called rest, what's going on with you with the hands and everything?
Eyes are watering.
Say
And I
more
get,
about that. Yeah.
And I can't take my eyes off of Arena's rep.
Can you say, I can't reach you with my hands, but I'll reach you another way?
I can't reach you with my hands, but I'll reach you another way.
It's not quite right. Can you fix it? Yeah, I felt that. I felt it was close, but it wasn't quite it.
I can't reach you with my hands. I can reach you through your eyes.
Well, can you say, I always loved you?
I always loved you. I still love you.
This feels like the great grandparents. And I would not dismiss the images of World War One as well, Arena. There are resonances of that as well. Yeah. Is there something you want to do with your hands, Rest, as we bring this to a close? Maybe reach out. And Arena's rep is if there's anything you want to do with your hands in response, feel free. Do what comes natural. And it's useful if we can see. Oh, that's so sweet. That's really nice. It's really, really nice. I'll let this movement happen a little bit more and say a word to the client. We may not know all the content, like what's the history behind this movement. We
I
have
can
some
tell you.
guesses. What?
I can tell you.
Oh, you do now know now?
I mean, this is reality. I mean, it's my my husband was dying and he cannot use his hands anymore and cannot touch me anymore. Um, his hands are like that, totally. He's so crippled.
So you might do this, Arena. Feel his hands on your face. I mean that the client who just spoke. Is that okay to do, or would you prefer not to?
Yeah.
I know it's a lot. Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. It's big. We're really sorry you're going through this. The one called Rest, and who for now we will call, what is your spouse's first name?
Tim.
I'm sorry?
Tim.
Tim?
Mm-hmm.
Can you say, Arena, I will not be able to touch your face anymore.
He could. He could if he wish.
Much as I would like to touch your face, it's not possible for me right now.
And yet, I touch your face.
And yet, I touch your face
Always and forever.
always and forever.
Is that okay to say? We have to honor the truth of what's happening here. And this feels really tender and personal. The field has popped this up for you, Irina. How are you doing? Because I'm going to bring it to a close in a moment.
I'm good.
Is it okay to leave it here?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's starting to feel kind of private between you and him. Yeah?
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, so, the two representatives, I release you from the roles.
Mhm.
Go ahead and return to your previously functioning identities. And I'm not going to do the full ritual that I usually do, but just this seems important here. Cheryl and Eileen, can you just say to Irina, my name is fill in the blank, and I represented fill in the blank. And Irina, you just say thank you.
My name is Eileen, and I represented Irina.
Irina, my name is Cheryl, and I represented Tim.
Thank you. Cheryl.
And they both represented other levels of your family system. This meaning is it's not local to you and Tim. You and Tim are living it now, but it's an important meaning. Yeah. How are you, Irina? Anything you want to share?
No, I almost feel I can breathe better. Yeah, I feel relieved somehow.
Good. It's an honor for us, for you to even unconsciously invite us into this moment in your life. It's very private. And so really, really honor being brought into it at all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So we'll let you sit with that and let that marinate a bit. So in a few moments, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you all who want to, it's all voluntary and consensual, into pairs. Remember those brainstorms I asked you to do at the beginning? This is where you're going to pull those out and practice with each other. But before we do that, I just want to check in. I want to get a feel for the group. How are you doing? What are you noticing? Questions, observations? We'll let Irina's personal content to move in her, but general questions or observations or insights you're having that you want to share at this point before we move into doing some work with someone else. I hope we're getting a little bit of a feeling around the healing sentences. Yeah, Alexis.
I'm just glad that you really acknowledged the intimacy of that because it was so strong and I've never heard anybody say that before, that this is, such an intimate moment between you. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, you kind of want to feel systems. In fact, there are times where you'll get to a certain point in a constellation. I'll say, this is private. We're not going any further with this. This is mother's private business. This is father's private business. It's so I do like to acknowledge that when it arises. It helps the system sort of relax about it. Yeah, Beth.
There was a part I was wondering about towards the end where Tim said, I can't, and then you added, and yet, remember you added on that, and yet, and I guess it's just a question of sometimes where the reps, earlier we had a sense the love was there, but like when are we putting words in reps' mouths that's inviting them to go beyond where they consciously are now, if that makes sense? Or, how do you decide when to invite them to go further than they might have just paused in the pattern they're in?
Yeah. I get a sensation that something is incomplete. I mean, that movement is good, excellent, wonderful, and incomplete somehow. And then if it rubs me enough, I try it. And if it doesn't work, then I backtrack it. This is the other thing. You can try movements and have the system rejected and not lose rapport, as long as you're willing to cooperate with the, oh, never mind. You don't need to say that. Let's try something else. But again, it goes back to that bit about the orders of love. Like there's an order of love here that is wants to include something, another piece. And so I'm trying to find that language. Laura's just said she doesn't feel like she has the resources to practice. I think she already left. For anyone who doesn't feel like they have the resources to practice, I do invite you to stick around because we're gonna reconnect at the end. So just to let people know, if you're going to turn down the opportunity to practice, you can go wash the dishes for a few minutes and then come back for the ending together. Other questions or observations? And by the way, I do that to a fault, Beth. It's actually a useful thing to notice. I'm often wanting to include one more thing and one more thing and one more thing. And where does that become gilding the lily? Right? But that's okay. So it means I have an eye out for something else that someone might have missed including. It washes out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions or comments or insights or thoughts that are coming up for people? Ready to move into some practice? Okay. This people really enjoyed this last time. A couple of people decided not to participate, but the people who did, I forgot to mention in the beginning, and this is really important. Could you find your inner perfectionist? Say, hello, inner perfectionist, and all the ways you try to take care of me. I love you, and I'm going to give you the next half hour off. Go have a beer, or whatever your inner perfectionist likes doing for a little bit, okay? Because I really, to learn, we have to be able to be messy. And Mary Beth is going to come back in a half hour. And I mean that both as when you're the one trying the practice, but also when receiving it, okay? Let it be okay if your practitioner doesn't land the world's best healing sentence on you, right? Make room for each other's being students, trying something out, okay? So that's the first thing that's really, really important. You're not required to. I'm going to describe the procedure, and then I'm going to ask if anyone would like to be left out of the matching process. So here's the procedure. You're going to have 30 minutes, maybe even a little bit more. Say hello, just say, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. You know, do a little bit of connecting, decide who wants to practice first and get started. You're going to do as many rounds of this as you're able to do and you want to do. If you want to do one round for 15 minutes, you can do that. Or you can do, you know, 6 5-minute rounds, right? That's why I wanted you to write up a few situations, so I have a few things to deliver to the other person to practice with. So the client, in quotation marks, is going to share their situation in a couple of sentences. Be really brief, don't take up a lot of space with that. And the practitioner takes the time to listen and feel. Are you noticing anger, grief, fear? Like, what are you feeling and noticing? Then, if you need to, in each of the situations I had today, I had 2 or 3 follow-up questions just so I could understand the situation. I understood for Irina, I was not dealing with a sleep disorder. Like, people come to me with insomnia all the time. This was not about insomnia, right? But I had to ask a couple of questions to find out what was going on, yeah? So you might need to ask, but don't get too complicated and don't like need to know the whole story. Just enough so you got it grokked, enough. Then start trying some healing sentences. Okay? Going underneath, finding the primary emotions. Get feedback from the client. Like, you just rang my bell, that was perfect. Or, oh, I like this bit, but this bit didn't feel quite right. Or, no, that's not landing for me, right? Just muck about in it a little bit, yeah? Do that for a few minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, and then switch so the other person gets an opportunity to do it. What I noticed last time is what people seemed to choose was like 5 minutes for one, 5 minutes for another, 5 minutes for another, 5 minutes for another, more or less. So y'all were getting, they were getting a bunch of practice. But if you use half the time on one, that's fine. It's up to the two of you and how you decide to structure it. Just make sure that everybody does get a turn to practice and to be on the receiving end. Don't get so deep into one person's thing that you're basically spending the entire 30 minutes on one person's thing. You caregivers, you know who you are. Let yourself receive too, okay? Balance of giving and taking is always good for the system. So that's basically it. You're going to practice some healing sentences with each other. I see a hand up from Sophie.
Yeah, I thought of a question. I noticed that some of the sentences are really about naming what is,
Yeah.
and some of them are about moving.
Yeah.
So can you say a little bit more about when you do which and how you know when you need to stay with what it, because the 2 examples in the beginning of the class were very different. I noticed around that.
Yeah. Once you start doing movement, I'm going to say a basic principle here. People are in their patterns because even though it's horrible, it reads as safe to this part of the brain. So the minute we start doing change, there's at least a little bit of an increase in a sense of unsafety. Okay? So naming what is tends to be easier, right? It doesn't tend to set off alarms. Generally in a constellation, you start out with naming, I mean, this is just generally speaking, you get a sense of the system, you reveal what's going on, and then you start introducing change, right? Moving people around and making things happen. Because you need more safety, more time, more rapport. On the other hand, I get a lot of points for being an authority and being kind of trustworthy. I can kind of go to movements with people kind of faster here, just because, you know, I've got some authority here, yeah? And there's a lot of goodwill. So, the simple answer, there's no rule about that. If you're feeling a movement, you can try it, and the system, aka the client, will give you the feedback. It was too fast. The timing wasn't off, which is excellent learning, right? You get 5 stars for the learning, right? Just see what shows up, and you know, if you want to prioritize, you can start with a naming what is kind of a thing, and a moving to a movement thing. Yeah. The other thing is that those are different and they're not different, because sometimes naming what is the movement, right?
I noticed that with one of the first ones, no one will catch me, was the naming what is. And that seems really powerful. That almost was enough. And that was just naming what is. Whereas with the second example, it was, you know, what that was your experience and it doesn't have to be mine, or whatever that was, felt like more of a movement. And they both really accomplished kind of the same.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in some ways, all orders of love and all primary emotions can be boiled down to honoring what is, in a sense. But systems have specificity, so it's useful to have some differentiations between these things as well. And you will notice, you'll get the reaction, I'm moving too fast. You're out ahead of me. I'm not ready to hear that. And then you'll adjust. Yeah. It's not about getting all the moves right. It really is about being willing and able to adjust as you're getting the feedback from the system. That's skillful facilitation. It's not about getting every move right out of the box, ever. Every once in a while, it kind of feels like that, like, ooh, I'm on today. Yes. But it's just that time. Most of the time, you have to backtrack or correct, or I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked you to say that yet. No. And then you adjust. Feedback, feedback, feedback. Okay, ready to be put into groups? Anyone here who would prefer not to be in a group? Maribeth stepped out. Anyone else who would prefer not to be in a pair? Okay, good. I'm going to give you all 30 minutes. Let me look at the groups and see if we have even groups. We may not have even groups. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, I need one group of 3. Okay. I am going to. Okay. So there's going to be one group of 3. Okay.
They should be 10 people, no? Because Rosanna and Maribeth left.
Rosanna, oh, she is not going to do it either. Thank you. I didn't see that in the chat. Thank you. Thank you. That does help. Give me a second. Okay. There you go. Rosanna and Maribeth will get an invitation into a room. I put them both in the same room, but they don't, if you're within earshot, you don't need to accept it. Oh, yeah, and it's set for 30 minutes. Welcome back, welcome back. We'll wait until everyone makes their way back. Welcome, welcome, welcome. That's everybody back now. Hello, welcome back. Miracle cures left and right. Yeah, excellent. So I want to get some feedback, some questions, some sharings. But before I do that, I want to do one thing real quick, which is just kind of share what's happening next, so that you have an opportunity to consider next steps with me if that's of interest to you. Some people tend to start asking questions more about healing sentences, orders of love, field perception, different kinds of things. On July 13th, my annual 5-week course, Constellations for Individuals, is getting started. It's a really good class. People tend to really enjoy it. We've got 1 thumbs up here. That's excellent. Thank you. A few. Yeah, we've got several. I go through some formats for how to work one-on-one with people, but I also return to some core foundational principles in slightly different ways. So hopefully it's actually sort of a refresh for people. And you get a really good chance to practice with each other and really grow more in mastery. You can save $100 on that through next Wednesday. So that's a time to take a look at that. I have online gatherings to do constellations with people every 2 to 3 weeks. You can attend as a representative witness, get more of that practice. And there are openings for focus clients at upcoming events as well. The next one is July 1st. So it's a good place to keep getting practice. And then finally, my annual training starts in October. So it's way ahead of time for you to take a look and see about those dates and whether they might be a fit. It is an online training with an optional residential element. Okay. So that's all I want to say about that. Always need to make sure I take time to share the other things I am offering. I will also put that in the follow-up email with the recording and the slides that you will get probably tomorrow. So that's done. Yay! Now, I would like to open this up for shares from your pairings. A beautiful sentence that someone came up with, or something that impacted you, or a way you felt like, oh, this is how it came up for me. And even interesting and useful failures is always like, oh, that was a train wreck. It can be good for learning. And then, of course, any lingering questions about any of the material. So I want to open it up a little bit. It's always really good after these exercises to hear a few shares. Yeah, Roma.
Irina, you okay if I share what my session and how we got to where we got to from mine? That's great. Thank you. So it was amazing that Irina pretty quickly zoned in on what was your relationship like with your father, because my presenting issue is around, I get really irritated when people blow their own trumpet, when they brag a lot. And so, Irina just asked me that question, and it just completely took us into a place where we got to a place when we played with it. It was fun. We had a lot of fun. She gave me some sentences, and then I went, yeah, no, that one, yeah, that one. And then what about this? And then we got to a sentence where it actually was, your approval is more important to me than my achievements.
You said that to your father? Or
yeah. Well, that was that. It became about him. So
got it. Okay, good. Yay. And I like the kind of back and forth. You can't always do that in a constellation, but this is a great place to sort of, yeah, we're about 75% of the way there, and this is the piece that's working, but that's the piece that isn't, and you can feel the system responding to the subsets. So nice. Yay. Good.
It was gorgeous. Yeah. Thank you, Irina.
Awesome. Yay.
Yeah, and it was reciprocal. We really had a good exchange. So I'm going to let someone else speak about it, but yeah, but it was definitely a good way to work, and different, so different than. I think there is a subtlety to what those healing sentence and the way to get there that is so different for me than
Good.
the stock sentence, I would say. So it was really interesting to play with that. Thank you.
Yeah. It's feeling your way through. It's not about striking something hard. It's surfing is a better metaphor. It's like, how can I work on in here? Oh, in here, in here. Yeah. Another share or a question or an interesting failure. A useful failure.
I found, I was with Christina and, was it Christina? Christine. Anyway, we sort of like went off of the original, I'm afraid no one will catch me, and took that to the next step,
Good.
where she said she felt me holding my breath and that it had sunk me to like a deep, dark place that felt like death. So and that it was old. So that picked up on my ancestral, my ancestors were coal miners. And
Oh.
yeah, so undoubtedly, some of them clearly perished, in the mines. And the healing sentence there was, I honor your heavy fate and please bless me as I breathe and live for us all. And I thought that was kind of cool.
And I just the for us all it's got a little funny ring to it.
Hmm.
Well, how do you understand the for us all? Who's the all?
Actually, I think the men.
Right.
I've been
You
doing a
don't
lot
live for
of,
them. You don't live for them. Yeah, I'm gonna adjust that one. Yeah.
well, my thing is, I'm sort of, as a woman, I'm almost living the life of the men in my family.
Right.
Because,
Oh, so that's naming how it is now.
yeah.
Ah, I got it. Thank you. Okay. So the next step would be something like, I honor the breath that you had and I breathe for me. Or
Oh, I love that.
something,
Okay, cool.
something like that. Just so we can unentangle you from being responsible for the men, whoever the men are. Yeah. But
Yeah.
as a naming of how it is now, I breathe for you. Yeah, I get it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone here could feel, who are some people here you're breathing for? Yeah.
Thank you.
Who are you doing double time for with your lungs?
Good one.
Nice, nicely done. Alexis, you had your hand up. I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say that when I was facilitating with Eileen, what came up was so big, I thought there's no way I'm going to find a healing sentence.
Yeah.
And I was ready to just let it go, as Eileen said, maybe just acknowledging what is enough. But we persevered, didn't we, Eileen? And we ended up coming up with a healing sentence for her that worked in the moment.
Would either of you be willing to share what it was?
If you want to, Eileen, it was your sentence.
All of you are my family.
I don't even have any context for that, but I can feel it resonate. Right? That's it, Yeah. Excellent. Okay, yeah. So just to by the way, one of the things that snags people in facilitating is that by the very nature of what we do, we are constantly stepping into big stuff. Like, all the people who died on the Cherokee Walk of Tears, the suicide, the 12-year-old who died of leukemia, the 3 miscarriages in a row. I mean, we're just always. So it's not about steeling yourself and like, I'm going to really get gritty with this. It's actually kind of the opposite. It's the more you expose yourself, the more you go, oh, that's human. That's big. It's really big, and that's human. But it's kind of appropriate that it strikes us that, oh my gosh, I'm walking into some big stuff here with people. Yeah. Yeah. And get used to it. It's like the things people have endured. The things people have endured or not endured, were overwhelmed by and did not endure. Yeah. That is human. That is, ooh, that's big. That is human. That is human. That is human. Yeah. So as we move to shifting gears here a little bit, over the 3 hours, I just want to get a little bit of sense of how this is landing for you. What's the image or the idea or the approach in this that's like you're chewing on or has got you excited or confused, or just a couple of sharings on the again, another doorbell I'm going to ignore. I don't know what the first one was Amazon. Sorry, I don't know what that one's about. Just something that maybe came your way in terms of rethinking this healing sentence business that's got you excited or interested. Just so I can read the pulse, the temperature of the room a little bit about how this material is landing for you.
Leslie,
Yeah, is it Christina? Yeah.
I'm appreciating this material because it feels like these phrases are coming organically. They're not contrived. And so I'm still trying to fit them and concentrate them down, but it feels, they feel more authentic to me. Some of the other phrases, we just kind of pick a phrase and fit it in, and it just didn't quite resonate. This just feels like it's a different pathway.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it can be both and. Again, the stock phrases, when the moment is right for them, they feel very organic. But yeah, they don't, sometimes we need to find the primary that's unique to that particular system in that moment. Yeah, I'm glad it's feeling that way. Excellent. Yeah, Beth.
What I noticed with you and then in the one I did paired with Bev, like there's also very much a somatic feeling. Yes. And it's like poetic metaphors coming in a lot. So when I shared my situation, she had the feeling of when you're on a roller coaster where you get that, you know, and it was like, whoa, this is going fast. And it was just such a crystal clear image. And her just saying that bodily experience in the metaphor, that helped us get towards where we went together.
Excellent.
So in a way, even just this practice is its own new little form. Like we're not even doing full constellations, we're just playing with this, but it's also like a variation on a constellation form.
You are doing constellations.
Yeah.
It's often called chair work or systemic coaching, right? It's constellations without setting up a constellation, but it's definitely working systemically with people. You know, you've seen Bert Hellinger do all of his work and never sets up the constellation. It's just the interaction. Jane Peterson is big on this as well. She calls it chair work. And the other thing I want to say, yes to the somatic piece. And I really want to name that how people feel or code this varies from person to person. Some feel it very intellectually and left brain wise. Some people very verbally, some in their body, some emotionally, some connect it with their psychic or channeling training. However, your, you know, sort of your way of noticing the information, go for it. Go with your strength and how it comes through for you. And I say yes to the somatic because that's really, it's a combination of feeling my body and tracking the images and the wordplay going on in my head a little bit. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Rosanna.
Leslie, thank you. I found this presentation really very well organized and very clear from the beginning. That part from the examples and how you put it in, healing centers are either to move forward a client or to just acknowledge what it is. That is just like, very like from the bat, this is how it is. And the presentation on your slides, that really, it's for me, had been very useful in and very structured in presented in a way that it's organized on my brain better.
Good.
Right. And of course, it's your experience as well when you are working with a volunteer person and coming with the sentences. That is also like gold, right? When we can see you in action, that is like, that's what I'm coming to your workshops. So thank you. This is how it had worked for me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my brains are in Peru. There was a huge earthquake last night and there had been replicas. So I hadn't been able to talk with my mother yet, and she's 9. So that's why I couldn't come to the practice, because I'm trying to set up another Zoom after yours to be able to speak with my mom. And it's already 10 o'clock here in New York. So
our good thoughts to your family in Peru. Yeah.
Thank you. They are okay, but they are very nervous.
Heard. Yeah. And thank you for the feedback. I do want to say that, as I said in some of the promotion, there's no formula for this, right? I mean, by the very nature of this work, there's no formula for it, but there are things we can kind of pull out and present.
Yes.
So before we come to a close here, because we're at 2 after, and I want to honor everyone's time, take a moment and just be with the last 3 hours. The opening little interactions I had with a couple of people, and then the talk, and then the little constellation I did with Arena, and then the pairs work most of you did with each other. And then be with yourself for a moment. Allow an image or a moment or an insight or a question to come to your heart, so that you can intentionally leave with something that's important. So just let that come up to your heart. What is the gift? And then once you have that, turn it into a sentence. And once you have that, popcorn style, I invite you to share. What is your takeaway in a sentence? You can just lean forward, unmute, and share it.
Gratitude.
Rosanna, go ahead.
Gratitude.
Gratitude. Thank you.
I'm feeling more grounded. Thank you.
Good. Excellent.
I didn't see, in my head, I was seeing the sunflower, and like they were what in my head, it was like every petals. There were so many different petals that I received today, and I opened my eyes and there was the sunflower. So yes, the beauty of the whole flower, but you give so many different petals.
Thank you. Yeah, Bev. Make sure you unmute yourself.
Resonance.
Just feeling greater tenderness with myself and my own timing of things.
I appreciate the fluidity of this work.
trusting my slow process.
I embody white buffalo calf woman in my family.
Being with the process and having safe space to practice and expand the process, feel the spaces in between the places of getting to the sentences. I really feel the process.
For me, it's permission to be authentic and not always get it right.
Anyone else?
Welcoming this energetic flow.
Is that everyone? Have I missed anyone? Okay, well, that's it. You will get the recording and the slides. And if you want to do more stuff together, let me know. Some of you may have cracked something open and you're like, oh crap, now I got to do a constellation on that. So let me know. Otherwise, have a great evening or day wherever you are. Unmute and have a messy goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Everyone.
You.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.